basically the principles that I took away from my time is that nothing is wasted and everything can work together. And the problem actually creates the solution. So it's very, very possible to create a sustainable ecosystem that is self-containing. And so how do I create a sustainable ecosystem in my business that works to be in support of me, in support of my team, in support of my clients and students, and in support of any of the lives that it touches? So how can it be a life-giving business in every single way? Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celine DaCosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime, so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in. Hello, soul family, and welcome back to the podcast. So today is a special one because it is the season finale of season 3 of It's Not What You Think. And I have every intention to end this with a bang. So tune in for today. So today's episode is a continuation. It is the finale, building on the last episode where I went deep on revealing the key insights that I learned from recently taking a 3-month sabbatical off of my business. And so if you haven't heard that episode yet, I highly suggest that you tune into it. It is just, I would say, a treasure chest of deep spiritual, emotional, and practical lessons that I learned from essentially unplugging after 10 years of being an entrepreneur. And to be honest, over 20 years of just working. I started working my part-time job when I was 14 years old. And I'll save the story for that episode. But basically, I've been working for a really long time. I have been entrepreneurial and doing my own thing for quite a bit. And for me to step away from my business and meet myself without that identity was equal parts challenging as it was absolutely gratifying and revealing. And so today's episode is the practical what now companion to that one. So this is where I'm going to be sharing with you how those spiritual realizations that I had from my sabbatical of how I want to live my life, of who I want to be, and how I want to move forward with these insights, how I'm actually translating them into transforming my actual business model. Yeah. So the punchline is this. During my sabbatical, I discovered that there were a series of energy leaks in my life. And by energy leaks, what I mean is just places and spaces where I was leaking life force energy, where I was feeling exhausted and tired, and like I was draining myself. And for the most part, I was doing it unknowingly, right? Because it's not like I was doing that on purpose. It's not like any business owner does this to themselves on purpose, but I really was able to see it. And I was able to see how the energy leaks that were in my life were mirrored in my business. This is huge because a lot of times for us business owners out there, many of the things that, the ways that we're not expressing ourselves in our life, the ways that we're not setting proper boundaries, the ways that we are not managing our time well, it is all going to get mirrored in our business, whether we know it or not. So I found myself depleted by constant performance and a something that a misalignment that I wasn't aware of because it wasn't anything big, but it was those little paper cuts. There's a phrase that I really love that they use in the US. It's called death by 1,000 paper cuts, which is about how oftentimes the biggest problems are not like a singular big flaming hot problem, but oftentimes when we're misaligned or when things aren't going well, it's because of a bunch of tiny little things that we allowed to, we didn't notice what were happening. And so when all of these little things add up, it starts to create one big problem. And that will become super clear as, I unpack and share how I saw that, what the paper cuts were in my particular business. I also saw that one of them being that my business systems were structured in ways that were stifling my creativity and draining my energy. So today I'm sharing how I am rebuilding my business. So I'm really going to be taking you behind the scenes of what I discovered, thanks to the insights that I had from my sabbatical when I came back into my business with fresh eyes and a lot of clarity on my mission and what it is that I wanted to create in this next chapter of my life. I started to very clearly see all of these problems that I couldn't see before. And so I'm going to take you, behind the scenes of how I'm rebuilding my business when it comes to my business systems, and also how I am continuing to optimize my business for soul alignment. And I think this is something really, really important. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that soul alignment is my jam, right? So everything I build, I am building in accordance to my highest soul destiny to the best that I can, right? Consciously can. But my intention is to create in alignment to my highest soul destiny. And so when I look at my health, my love life, in this case, what we're going to be discussing today, my business, that's what I'm optimizing for. I'm optimizing for soul alignment. I'm optimizing to ensure that every step I take is towards my highest soul destiny rather than away from it. Okay. So let's dive in. Let's dive into the juice. All right. Now, the first piece that I want to talk to you about is mirrored energy leaks, both in the self as well as in the system. So I came back to work in February. I took my sabbatical from November all the way through January. And when I came back, I had spent a lot of time in deep reflection, as I share in the last episode, where I had a few really big realizations. And again, definitely listen to that episode for you to have more context. But basically, the high level summary is this: the biggest realizations that I had was, number one, is that the secret to a fulfilled life is learning to love the life you already have. And so part of my work during my sabbatical was to meet myself without my business identity. It was to look at my life, my personal relationships, my health, my relationship with myself, my relationship with God, source, universe, and to ask myself the question, am I happy with who I've become and what I've created outside of my business, outside of the validation and the money and the metrics and the testimonials? Like if I just took my business and just temporarily put it completely aside and I looked at all other aspects of my identity, am I happy with who I've become? The good news is that the answer was a resounding yes. And that was one of my biggest aha moments is, wow, the personal work freaking works. And I know I've been tooting this horn for over a decade now, and I'll continue to do so because I can't tell you, even I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday who's also a coach in the personal development space. And I was telling him, I said, my gosh, I am my best client. And he laughed out loud and he's like, really? That's so weird because with most coaches, usually they are their worst client. And it's very rare for me to hear someone say that they're their best client, but it's true. I am my best client. The reason why I carry so much conviction in this work, the reason why I'm so freaking passionate about it, even after a decade of doing it, is because I know it works. And even in this 3 month sabbatical, I literally led myself through my own methodology, through my own frameworks, through my own subconscious reprogramming process. Like I did the work that I would literally assign to a client. If they had the problem that I was having, which is I was feeling disconnected, I was feeling like I had lost passion for my mission and I had lost a little bit of vision for what that mission was anymore. I was feeling burnt out and bogged down by the size of my business, to the point where I started downsizing. And I'm continuing to do so, by the way, for reasons I'll explain within this episode. But I was just feeling so drained, so exhausted, and disconnected and misaligned that I had to take a break. And yeah, and like my biggest insight was, gosh, I do love myself and I do value myself. And I have built a healthy sense of self worth through all of the work that I've done in the personal development space on myself. And it was really cool to experience that because when I came back to my business with fresh eyes, I also came back to it with an intact sense of self-worthiness, which was a really important thing. And an intact sense of no matter where this business goes, I still love my life. I still have built an incredible network of incredible people who have my back. I'm still healthy and mobile and, I love my life. Um, so that was the first insight. The second insight was really around energy and the way that we leak our energy all the time, and the lack of boundaries that we might have with ourselves actually perfectly mirror into our business. And now I've been teaching on this for years and I've been supporting clients as well with this, but it's one thing to teach it and then it's one thing for it to be your blind spot and then for you to be like, oh wow, this is how I've been unconsciously operating that way. And I also learned really profound lessons around the importance of balancing systems with creativity and making sure that you create time for both. And so with these insights and with these lessons, I came back with super fresh eyes and I started doing an energetic audit on my business. So what does that mean? I started to, because I had put every single thing down in my business, when I started to pick things back up, I started doing so very intentionally, very slowly, and very consciously. And I started to take notice of how I felt with certain tasks. And so rather than just being like, okay, we're back in business. Here's all the things I need to do. Here's my to-do list for the week. Here's the things that let's just get back. Okay, everybody, I'm back. Let's get back to business, right? No. What I started doing is really starting to feel into how does it feel for me to be creating these emails right now? And how does it feel for me to be opening up my calendars for calls again? And how does it feel for me to have a team meeting set up a team meeting for this week? And I started to really just slow down and feel into what was going on in my business. And because I already had 3 months of having slowed down and being in my relaxed parasympathetic nervous system, like being calm, not being stressed, laid back, it was like the best way I can describe it is, when you're used to being a little stressed and spinning 5 plates at the same time, but then you put down all the plates and you learn what it's like to be relaxed again. And then you pick up 2 plates and you're like, oh, wow, this is a lot. And you realize that you don't yet have the capacity to pick up 5 plates again without being stressed. And it's like, oh, I can pick up 5 plates. I can pick up 2 plates and do that really well instead of 5 plates, not so well. That was the realization that I had. And it revealed to me, this audit, the way that personal and business leaks were mirroring each other. And so I'll give you an example of this. One of the things that I did is I have I've built out an incredible, systems. Operationally, my business, I run a tight ship, and I'm super proud of it. I have an incredible project management system that I use. Team time tracking for my team, task tracking. Like, we're really, really organized. I would say I'm on the freakish end of organization when it comes to my business, to the point where most people cannot comprehend how a creative brain like mine can also be as systematic as mine. It's one of my gifts, is just being able to be in both worlds at the same time. So I share this because I had to downsize. One of the realizations that came through with my business is that I used to think that I just wanted a bigger and bigger business and make more and more money and scale and serve more and more people. And I realized in the past year that that's actually not what's most important to me. And so this, I realized through my, subconscious reprogramming work that I also do on myself, is that for me, the joy of building a business isn't about how fast I can scale it. It's how aligned I can grow it. And that doesn't mean I can't scale it or I can't hit certain numbers. Like, I'm not saying they are mutually exclusive, but that I found myself prioritizing how fast can I launch this? How quickly can I grow this? How soon can, the next income level bracket be reached? And I realized that I was working with the wrong metrics, because that's not actually what creates joy for me. I am a prolific creator. I really love creating content. I mean, you can see this, like the podcast, my channels, like now my membership. I love creating. That's not a problem for me. And it's not a problem for me to create loads of content really fast either. But I noticed that when I was doing too many things and I was disconnected from why I was doing them, it started to grate away at my joy and my love for doing things. And the same thing started to happen as I started to grow a team, because I would want to do, for example, like, oh, let's launch another course. And that required another team member to manage the administration of that course. And because there was another team member there, it required more people management, which required more hours from my business manager. And because there were more people, we needed more systems to manage everybody. And so it started this bit of a snowball effect where the fastest I grew and the more I needed, the more people I needed, the more systems I needed, the more operations I needed. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel that I grew at a rate that was faster than what I could sustain in my joy and my regulated nervous system. And it's not a bad problem to have. The fact that, my business grew faster than I was able to stay connected to it, right? And so one of the things I needed to do as part of my cleanup process is I needed to release some team members, downsize my team, and also downsize their hours to regulate, for the lesser workload that I was opting to have consciously. And even when I started to lessen team hours, one of the things that I realized is, my gosh, there are so many tasks that are being done by my team after even 1 year, almost a year of downsizing. There's so many things that my team members are doing that I don't even understand why they're doing these tasks anymore. It's like tasks on ClickUp, which is the project management software I use, where it's like clean up, run a Google Analytics report. And it would be this random Google Analytics report that I wouldn't look at and nobody else was looking at. And so a team member would be spending time running reports and gathering statistics that no one would ever look at. So it was just like a task for the sake of doing a task. And there was a bunch of these tiny little tasks that in and of themselves weren't taking up huge amounts of time. But if you add up all of these tasks, then we're looking at like maybe thousands of dollars of money that's being spent every month on tasks that are not even revenue generating or, lead nurturing or anything that is of high urgency and importance. And when I had my team meeting about this, to let my team know, hey, we're going to need to do a serious audit of everything that's going on in the business. And I really want to ask you to ask yourself, what I'm doing right now, the tasks that I'm like, the hours I'm putting towards this business, Are they actually supporting the business? Are they generating revenue for the business or supporting the clients in the business? Like, there was a certain criteria that I had them run through on whether this was life-giving for the business. And it turns out a bunch of people were doing a bunch of things that were draining the business bank account and draining them because they didn't even love doing the tasks and were not that important. And the metaphor that I used with my team was I recently watched the Elvis Presley movie. And I remember seeing that huge mansion, Graceland or something like that. He lived in this huge mansion. And it's like, imagine my business is this huge mansion with all of these rooms. And there used to be all of these visitors every month into this mansion, but now we have way less visitors, and that's done intentionally, right? um, and so just think about it this way: you're the staff and you are cleaning a pool when no one's swimming, and you're stocking the kitchen when no one's eating. So, what are those tasks that you're doing that are just the equivalent of you cleaning a pool that no one's swimming in and you stocking a kitchen that no one is cooking out of? So, that was a really big one, was just cutting down on all the stuff that we need to, quote unquote, we think we need to do. And that included me as the CEO of the company. Like, I really started to, I say this, optimize for soul alignment. And I also started to optimize for joy. And what I mean by that is, I track my own hours now. And a lot of people think that's crazy because, I own the company. Like, why would I be on the time tracker? But it's because I wanted to get really dialed in on how much time I was spending on what tasks in my business and how I felt doing those tasks, as well as whether those tasks were moving the needle forward. And one of the things I discovered very quickly, like by the end of week 1 of coming back into my business, that I was, surprise, surprise, spending way too much time checking emails that weren't of that high importance. And that I was doing tasks such as social media, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, that were not really that high output. They were not highly leveraged tasks. And I was able to observe within myself how much time I spend doing things in my business because I think I should, because I feel like somebody needs a response right away when they can wait. And when my brain is telling me that it's urgent when it's actually not really urgent. And so it's been a really interesting self-reflection exercise to track my hours every week, and I cap myself. So I don't work more than 30 hours a week. And so if I am tracking myself, I'm at my 30-hour mark, is like, I'm done. You're done, Celine. Go play, go dance, go have some fun. And so because I have 30 hours, what I will do is I am watching my usage of those 30 hours. Like, I literally have this report that I run where I'll look at a pie chart and I will look at those 30 hours and look at, okay, how much time am I spending on what? And what kind of revenue is this generating my business? And are these activities, number one, bringing me fulfillment and joy? And number two, are they activities that are directly contributing to the life energy of the business, as well as without compromising my own? So it's a different set of questions. And honestly, as I say this, there is a previous version of me that would have absolutely freaking cringed at how data-driven I've become these days. And there's a previous version of me, and I can even I can hear the feminine empowerment coaches on the internet in my ears as I say this, being like, oh, I just flow with it. I just feel it out, my intuition. I never look at metrics. I don't look at stats. I just feel into it. Right. And there's nothing wrong with anything. I think you can build a business is in alignment to your soul, your way. But I realized that I feel so grounded in my capacity to, oh my God, even my womb pinged as I was saying that, to be in my feminine power. And also, I am not shy to bring in masculine structure. I'm not afraid of it. I welcome it. I welcome that kind of structure in my life. And so, yes, I have a very soul-led, heart-driven business where my intuition leads the way and I feel into things just like I did with doing an energy audit with my business. And at the same time, I look at data. I'm tracking my hours. I'm looking at my team and where they're spending their hours. And I am optimizing for me for soul alignment, but I'm also optimizing to see how is the business as a whole leaking energy right now? And how do we plug up those energy leaks so that everyone that's working in the business is doing what they're meant to be doing? They are fully owning their role in the business. And when they show up and put time and energy towards the business, that has a return. And I'm not just talking about money, because even as a contractor or as an employee, the most unsatisfying thing I remember from my days as an employee in a company is when I would work so hard on something and there wouldn't be a result in the company. The most satisfying for me, it was just so satisfying when I knew that my hard work meant something, right? And so I know that, for example, when my assistant, when she puts things up on social media and there's no engagement and it's crickets and it's not working, then that's really discouraging for her, because it's like she put in this time and she put care and effort and love into something and it's not working because the strategy's off. So it's so important to in business. I've been really thinking about and contemplating, how can I ensure that any time that I and my team put towards this business, we are putting it in a non-leaky bucket. It is a closed, sustainable system, which I'll talk about later in this episode, that gives back. The more we pour in, the more it gives back to us as well as the people that it serves. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a business. And so, another piece that I really saw as I was optimizing and auditing energy wise is that there is so much pressure that I've put on myself to post on social media and to be this prolific content creator. And I realized, especially, as I got more data driven, that statistically speaking, a lot of my private clients, which are the core, the heart, the pulsing heart of the business, they were coming from renewals, just people coming, renewing to work with me again. They were coming from word of mouth and referrals, as well as me being a guest on people's podcasts. That is where many of my ideal buyers were coming from. And it's really interesting because, just to give you another example of how I was leaking energy, so much time and energy from myself and my team, especially, up until last year, was spent posting on social media. But statistically speaking, that wasn't even the smartest strategy for me to be investing energy towards. So not only was I putting this unnecessary pressure on myself to perform on social media and to like be on stories every day and to create content and post every day, but it wasn't even the best use of my time. And so of course I was feeling drained, because I was putting in all this energy and time doing something because I thought I should, and it wasn't even the thing that was truly generating me the most business. It would have, for example, and this is part of the um, energy and strategic adjustments we're doing in my business, it makes more sense for me to reinvest that time networking and doing collaborations and pitching myself to be a guest expert on people's podcast than it is for me to create a reel, which I never really like doing, to be honest. So it's really interesting to me the way that something that's life-giving to me and I love doing anyways, which is networking with people and being featured on other people's podcasts and being a guest trainer, they're things that light me up anyways. And not only do they light me up, but they are actually what drives the most applications in my private coaching business anyway. So it is a better use of my time. And the whole thing about being on social media was an illusion. It was brainwashing from the industry and me allowing myself to be convinced into thinking that I needed to do something when I didn't actually need to do that. Right. And so one of the biggest changes I have made is I got off the performative content treadmill and algorithm chasing like hamster wheel. I got off of it because I find, and I'm super passionate about this, I've recorded episodes with guest experts around marketing and social media, and the direction that it's been taking is that I just found it was an energy vampire. And again, you will see I am still on social media, right? Like, I'm not demonizing social media. I'm not saying there's something wrong if you love being on it. To each his own. And what I realized is that I'm better off outsourcing this area of my life. So all of the content is still mine. All of the videos are still mine. If you go on social media, my social media accounts, you will see there it's still me, it's still my words, it's still my videos, it's still my face. And at the same time, I've created systems so that I have a team member who's posting and managing all of that for me, so that, people don't have access to me anymore. Beyond, if somebody wants to have private access to me, if they want an answer, if they want to ask me questions, then they're going to need to join my membership, or they're going to need to become private clients or come into one of my programs. But one of the things that I also realized was a huge energy leak that I needed to plug up was accessibility to my energy. And so I realized that with everything that's going on with social media, I just became so accessible to anyone who wanted to tap into my energy. And that was draining me. And if I'm feeling drained, then I'm not able to show up for my clients and my students with 100% of my energy if I'm feeling like I'm getting tapped at, right, from other sources. And so that was another quote unquote paper cut that I realized is I was leaking my energy just answering DMs, or I haven't checked my emails in years, but LinkedIn messages, or all these little places where people could sneak in and reach me. That needed to be plugged up by having somebody a one point of content who's absolutely wonderful, who handles my client care, customer service, and anyone who needs to, wants to get into deeper touch with me. That's when they would schedule an alignment call with an application, or they would come and join one of my offers, which I, have at different tiers so that it's accessible at different points. So yeah, that was another part of how I realized that I was leaking energy in my business. And another realization that I had in my energy audit is that my systems that were designed for efficiency were actually had gotten so systematized that it started to stifle my creativity. And here's what I mean by that. I went through this huge initiation a few years ago because I have always, I have a very creative brain. I'm the creative genius archetype all the way. I'm constantly creating content. I have so many notes in my phone with all these ideas of things I want to write, of books I want to write, of stories I want to tell. Like I'm just constantly like generating. And for those of you who are into human design, I'm a generator. I'm like a little machine when it comes to generating and having energy. And I was so disorganized at one point. And, one of the things that I help my clients do, so many of my clients are also creative geniuses. And one of the ways that I support them is I help them to create a system to hold their genius. And I got so good at this that I started to swing on the other side of the pendulum, where I had systems for literally everything. Like anything in my business, I have SOPs, standard operating procedures. I have a whole training vault. Like, just to give you an idea, if someone comes to work with me, I don't even need to train them personally, because there's like an entire training on ClickUp that they can just go through and lead themselves through. Like, I am very organized when it comes to the back end of my business. And so I realized that there was all these points when I was, for example, onboarding a new client. And I realized it was taking me longer to fill out a client onboarding form for my VA to go and onboard my client. It was taking me longer to just tell her which days to schedule my client and what the contract had to be in and how much the payment plans were than it would have actually taken for me to just go and do it myself. To have these kind of systems, it made sense when I had a big team, and it made sense when my business was much larger and there were more projects going on at the same time. But as I downsized my business and streamlined my business model for simplicity, and again, optimizing for soul alignment and joy, I realized that I had all these fancy things that I didn't even need anymore. It's like, I don't know, it's all these, I think of the equivalent of having all these. I had an ex-boyfriend who was a biohacker, and he had all of these gadgets to like constantly be optimizing his body. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, do I need like for me to wake up every morning and take this many supplements, and then I have to wait an hour and then take another supplement, and then, go to do cryotherapy, and then like go to the sauna in the evening? Like, the amount of time that I'm just spending optimizing my health, I feel like I could gain years of my life back by just being happier, having a more joyful life. I feel like I could just go dancing or do these or really enjoy like a juicy cheeseburger and be like super in my joy. And that would give me back more years of my life than needing to micromanage every single thing to make it better, right? Or for optimization. And I had a similar feeling with my business where it's like, okay, it is so dialed in that I actually don't have room to be messy or like I don't have room to like make up custom plans. And so I needed space in my own business. And I needed less time project managing and more blank space for creation. And because what happened is that my structures got too rigid and they were meant to create freedom, but they started to create confinement. And so part of my cleanup work in my business was, okay, can I actually do this manually? Is it truly saving me time to have this automation, or is it giving me another thing to fix if it breaks down? And I realized that there were certain parts of my work, such as the client onboarding, that brings me joy to do, to actually just do manually. And so I started to see that just becoming more, and I was already doing this before, but I got even more disciplined around creating just blank space days in my calendar. And what I mean by that is I take all of my calls Mondays and Tuesdays, and Wednesdays and Fridays, my calendar's open. There's no meetings on it. And I will not book meetings on it. And even though I may have work to do that day, I don't book anything so that I can just have that whole day open and free for me to be in my creative mode. And I've also, thanks to the time tracking, I've also put a cap on how much time I'm willing to spend project managing as well as structures. So depending on, it's not the same every week because right now, for example, we're working on launching something really exciting, which I'm going to be sharing with you at the end of today's episode. But obviously, my amount of time project managing is going to fluctuate, and I also have a project manager on the team, so it's not that it's that much time, but I do have a cap in the sense that every week I want to feel like I have creatively moved my business forward. And so I need to look at my time reports and see that I have spent a certain amount of hours, or if we look at a pie chart, there is a significant amount on the pie chart that I have spent creating an offer or just content creation or something that really truly lights me up, as opposed to, something that's more administrative, like talking to my accountant, tax strategy, or something that maybe doesn't bring me as much joy, but is important for me to do in the business. So I realized that there's a balance that we need to strike in our business when it comes to operations and creative. So, and this goes back to those masculine feminine principles, right? Like, how do we find harmony where we are both structured and organized and disciplined, and we also leave space for growth, for free flow, and for intuition to come through? I also realized that there were, in this energy audit, there were hidden costs to showing up consistently online, both personally and systematically. So this is just to wrap up everything I've shared in terms of content creation and how did I want to show up in my business, both internally within my team as well as externally, which is through my brand. I started to feel, I've been almost a decade in as a, quote unquote public figure. And so it's been a lot of years of documenting my life and sharing things that are vulnerable and intimate. And I know this happens to a lot of content creators or a lot of people who have grown a following, which is that you start to feel like you're on demand. And there is this like feeling of, I need to produce, and it sounds silly when I say it out loud, but bear with me because there's some truth here. And I've spoken to many, 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 many people about this. So I know I'm not alone here. I started to feel like a product instead of a human. And it just started to cross the line in terms of, I don't want to be on demand. And also like people feeling entitled to my time, my energy, and me needing to perform for them. And my sabbatical and the restructuring of my business is a big break away from that, because I don't want to be an on-demand product, you know? I don't want to be like oh, what's on Celine's show today? And she is expected to post every day. Like, let's tune into the Celine show again and again and again and again. I want to be human. And was such a big realization, because I realized that both internally with my team, even when I, the ways that I make myself available and the boundaries that I set in terms of when it's okay to contact me on Telegram, and when you need to keep it in the project management system. And it's simple things like them tagging me for something um, that is due the next day, and it's like, no, I'm not available every day to just be on demand. And so there was ways where I had to set boundaries, and actually rework my systems to ensure that I have proper runway to be able to answer them. And if I need to take a few days off and not answer them, the business continues. And that was already present before, to be fair, but it was more like a tweak and an optimization, that the more I realized that I don't want to be on demand, the more I have been able to rework my systems to ensure that I have space. Um, Another practical example of this is during my 3-month sabbatical, I was not on my app at all. I was not on social media at all. But my team was able to continue posting for me 3 to 5 times a week, because as part of my systems, I had created a content bank, where you can they have like pre-approved content that was written by me, for the next 6 months. And so that was one of the practical ways where I have and am continuing to create some space for myself so that I have time to recharge when it's necessary. And then on social media, it's also just breaking free from this expectation that even if I have a team, even if I have someone doing this for me, I'm breaking free from the expectation that I need to be posting every day. And I'm actually retraining my team as part of my content strategy, that quality over quantity. I would really rather us be posting, just taking more time creating posts that really matter and really mean something, than to post every day for the sake of posting, for the sake of pleasing the algorithm. And so you will see me lowering my content cadence in the near future. I will not be posting as much as I used to. And even, my team will also not be doing that for me, because I just don't feel like I need to anymore. And I have seen that that's not even the most effective strategic choice for my business, because posting more does not equal more clients, does not equal more leads, and does not equal more revenue, at least not the way that my business is currently structured. So yeah, it's not even the smartest thing for me to be doing with my time, or for my team to be doing. So anyways, the energy leaks in my life were perfectly reflected in my business systems. That's what I'm trying to get at. And what looked like burnout at first, this point of me feeling really tired and burnt out, was actually a perfect mirror showing me where both my soul and my business had lost alignment with what truly matters to me. And that's what I'm reclaiming in this next chapter of my business. And, the like I said, the organizational structure we built to support creativity was actually suffocating it. I know so many leaders go through this as well. Just as the social media performance that I thought was necessary for success was actually draining my life force. So no, thank you. Now, I'm going to transition into the next part of today's episode, which is, okay, what am I doing about it? Well, the short answer is I'm implementing permaculture principles for business. And for those of you who don't know what permaculture is, it's a form of agriculture and farming where it's literally stands for permanent culture. And what that means is you are farming and you are creating food with the intention of it being efficient and nothing is wasted. So no product gets wasted. There is no leakage, right? So I spent, as part of my sabbatical, I spent 2 months living in the jungles of Colombia, very rural, in a permaculture farm. And I took a permaculture program because I wanted to learn what it meant and what those principles are. And look, I just want a disclaimer to you that I am in no way no way, shape, or form sitting here being like, I took a, I was in a permaculture farm for 2 months. Let me educate you on what permaculture is, because I hardly scratched the, the surface of what this is. And I'm not an expert on this topic in any way, shape, or form. So I am only going to be speaking to the way that my exposure to this concept and my education, my limited education on what this was, deeply affected me and already gave me principles that I am implementing into my business that are already helping me. Okay. So if anyone here is like, oh my God, this girl's describing permaculture terribly, please forgive me. I am doing the best I can. But I also didn't want to go and like Google search permaculture and like read off a script to you. I intentionally am literally going off of what I integrated, so that I can keep this authentic instead of pretending like I'm an expert here, right? On permaculture specifically. So when I was living in this farm, I realized that they recycle everything. Like everything is used as an ecosystem to support each other. So I'm going to give you an example. There were compost toilets in this place, right? And so we would poo, and they would take the compost from the toilets and they would use it to fertilize the trees. They grew their own bananas and coconuts, and there's all these amazing fruits that were growing on the land. And so when we went to the bathroom, it would literally get composted, and they would put like human poo and chicken poo and ant poo, and like all of this fertilizer would get created, and then it would get put back into the trees. So there wasn't all this waste that was being generated. And then the trees would generate fruits, bananas, coconuts, papayas, whatnot. And then they would pick the fruit, and we would, at the farm, we would eat that fruit. And then when we would eat the fruit, and there was waste that came from the fruit, the seeds, we would use the seeds to plant new trees, and we would use any waste material to feed the chickens, who then would poo, and then we would use the chickens' poo and their eggs for food. Well, their eggs for food, not the poo, and their poo for fertilizer. And so, as you can see, this is a closed system. There is nothing about this that generates unnecessary waste. So it was a zero waste system where every single thing that was happening in the farm, any quote unquote waste that was generated was being plugged back into the system so that we can reuse it. Plastic bottles, for example, or glass bottles, they would use it to build, they were building like a mud hut, and they would take bottles and they would clean the bottles and they would use it as part of the building structure. And so every possible thing that was being used, there was no garbage. Everything was being like plugged back in, and there was quote unquote no energy leaks, right? So this was so inspiring for me to see this. And all I kept thinking about is, how can I create an ecosystem in my business where energy's in, energy's out, and there is no leakage of energy. So whenever we are putting forth an effort, whether it's me or my team, and we are working towards something, that's going into a closed energy system that is feeding the entire ecosystem all the way back. And I'll be more specific on what that looks like in terms of an actual business model. But basically, the principles that I took away from my time is that nothing is wasted and everything can work together. And the problem actually creates the solution. So it's very, very possible to create a sustainable ecosystem that is self-containing, and that feeds itself the same way. Like the example of the farm that I gave you, you can do that in business as well. And so how do I create a sustainable ecosystem in my business that works to be in support of me, in support of my team, in support of my clients and students, and in support of any of the lives that it touches? So how can it be a life-giving business in every single way? Because what I realized from the past year and a half of me just going into this deeper journey around how do I bring my business into even deeper alignment with my highest destiny, one of the biggest realization that I had, because I would say, but what are you talking about? My business is so life-giving. It does so many, like, look at my testimonials. Look at how many people I'm helping. Look at how many people are inspired from my social media. Like, look at this, look at this, look at my likes, look at my comments, look at the testimonials. But what I actually forgot about was me. I forgot about me in the equation. I forgot to turn off, get off my ClickUp after a certain hour. And I forgot to put stricter boundaries in place to limit my accessibility. So it was not a win-win-win, because it was a win-win-lose, because the one I was losing was me. And I was justifying it because it was just me, right? But it's not just me. I am the engine. Like I'm the heart of the business. And there's something to be said around building scalable businesses that don't need the business owner in it, and having a product that like can completely run without me. But the truth is that that's not the business I'm running. And it's not, I used to think that that's what I wanted and that's what I needed, but I like having my hands on the business. It brings me joy. It brings me joy to be the one that speaks to my clients to be. It brings me joy to have deep intimacy and contact with the people that are in my world. I don't want to completely remove myself to business and become this like franchise and have my face be the thing. Like it's not even in alignment with what I feel is right for me. But at the same time, my energy does need to be managed within that, right? And so what I took with me as well in terms of how do I build this forward is building for permanence versus short-term wins. Doing things with purpose, with intention, and getting more intentional about the energy from which I'm doing anything. And I talk about this in my last episode in detail, but essentially it's I can be doing a bunch of tasks, but the energy that I am doing those tasks from are going to affect my performance. If I quote unquote do 3 things today and I am doing them from flow state, I am going to perform much better and much faster and much higher quality than if I'm doing those things because I should and because I'm stressed and I don't want to, but I have to do it because I should. I could be blocking out the same amount of time. I could be time blocking just the same, and it could be the same exact 3 tasks. But if I'm doing from a space of joy versus me doing from a space of obligation, I'm going to get a completely different output in terms of quality. And so I started to see what's really changed the game for me. It's really transforming the way I work. Is I started to view my business as a thriving ecosystem instead of a badly built city. Have you ever been to, I think about it like, I think about Kathmandu, or there's like some cities that I've been in the world where I'm like, how is this city functioning? Because it is so badly built. It makes no sense. There's no planning. There's no city planning here. If you've ever been to New York City, there was very smart city planning. They built out the entire city like a grid. So at any point I can be like, oh, I'm on 5th Avenue and 37th Street. And if you know the city, you know where I am. And I could say, no, actually I'm going to 7th Avenue and 15th Street. Like I'm going to know, like I'm going to need to take a left, and then I take a right, and I go all the way until I hit 15th Street. Like it's clear because there is clear city planning. There was a blueprint that was created for the city before it was built. When I started my business over a decade ago, I didn't know how to do business. I just built stuff completely intuitively. And I just kind of went for it. And I built things completely off of intuition. I'm trying this out. Like, let me just give it a go. And what I found, and I find this is the case with so many business owners who don't do their quote unquote city planning. And by the way, I also appreciate that as a scrappy entrepreneur, that's kind of the name of the game. Sometimes you just got to make it up as you go. And then there's some point where you have to look backwards and be like, shoot, I need to organize my business now. Like I need to put things in a Google Drive. I need to have a project management system. Like I need to organize myself, or it's taking too much bandwidth to keep track of all the things. We all, like, provided that our business keeps growing and thriving, we are going to find that space in our business where whether we like it or not, we're going to need to get a little organized. If you're lucky, you have a mentor who can support you like right at the start to build up that infrastructure as you're building the business. But sometimes you just kind of build it. And that's what happened with me. I just built something. But I didn't think about the customer journey because at the time I didn't know what a customer journey was. And I didn't think about building funnels intentionally because I was still learning what funnels were. And so I just kind of like built this business, and it just started to become operate like a badly built city. It didn't make sense. Things weren't supposed to be where they were. And even though I went through a whole initiation around systematizing and organizing everything, which now I am very dialed in, I still realized that I had never really built my business looking at it as a whole. I built it as, okay, let me do this masterclass that leads in this course, and I'll think about the rest of it later, right? It was like, let me just get through one piece at a time. But now, for example, I'm in the process of building an incredible funnel on heart-led leadership, authentic leadership, and heart-led communication that includes a masterclass and um, a tripwired, which is going to be, a low ticket workshop and a group program. And I haven't built a single thing yet because I have spent, I kid you not, about 15 hours just planning, just planning, and not from a space of kicking the can down the road or procrastinating or like, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm just going to waste a lot of creative time planning. No. Like, I am very intentionally looking at the entire ecosystem of my business and asking myself the question, what am I creating this year? And what is my vision this year? What is my mission here? And based on my big picture vision, how does this product suite that I'm birthing, how does it fit into the big picture of what I'm offering to the world? And this kind of reverse engineering is exquisite. It is absolutely exquisite. I've never experienced anything like this before, because it is the equivalent of looking at a plot of land that I've just purchased in an optimal place somewhere around the world. And I'm looking at this plot and I'm like, I want to build a house. How do I organize this house? Like, how do I build my dream house? And it's not about like, oh, just the metaphor here is, oh, let's just build a living room and fill it with furniture and then we'll figure out the rest of the house. Like, that's how a lot of entrepreneurs start their journey. And again, there's a time and a place, but then you end up with a disorganized city, or in this case, you end up with like a house that's kind of messy because you're building one thing at a time, and it could turn out well for you, but then you're like, oh shit, I actually wanted to put my bedroom upstairs, but now I realize there's no room for that because I have already built my my game room. So, and then you're like, oh crap, now I have to compromise and put my bedroom not in the upstairs floor as I originally planned. And so I'm not doing that now. I'm like, okay, what's the customer journey? Where am I taking people through? And in this beautiful plot of land that I've carved out for myself, what am I building? And what's the sequence here? And looking at it from a big picture view, it's exquisite. It's delicious. And so, something that I recently came up with that I'm so excited about is, as part of my dreaming of what is this next variation of my business look like, I've come up with a vision. And this is where, we create the structure and we become data driven, but we also allow intuition. We create space for creativity, and creativity has found me because I had a vision of a living library. It came to me. It's so beautiful. And this concept of a living library as a content ecosystem and business model that I am in the process of adapting. And so in my business, I am moving from perfectly packaged content to raw, authentic wisdom sharing, which even when I say that, it brings such joy to my soul. So ever since I was a child, I've had a deep love for learning. I mean, I would spend hours reading fiction books and writing in the most beautiful journals and drawing. And I had this love that I have to this day for these small, cozy cafes. Have you ever walked into this like beautiful cafe and you can see these bookshelves that are full of books? Just the bookshelves are covered in books, and these like little coffee tables, and you can sit in very comfy chairs and you can pull out a book and just get lost in reading a book. I love that. I love the way it feels to find a space where I can get comfortable and just get lost in learning. And I desire to create a space for that. To create a space where I'm creating the space for me and for other people who appreciate this, which is a space where we can get lost in the joy of learning, in the where we can drink in wisdom, where we can be uninterrupted, no algorithm, just space for us to just read and watch and consume what it is that we're interested in consuming. And as part of my pivot in my business, I am reinventing myself and reinventing the business to create a business model that disrupts performative social media culture while honoring creative energy. And so for me, this has been a really big shift from social media codependency and codependency on what I think I should do or other people's advice on how to build my business to consciously and intentionally creating a regenerative business ecosystem. And the foundation is my internal wisdom and my internal experience. So everything that I've lived, from the permaculture farm to my love for quiet spaces, and a lot of people they say long form content is dead. Well, it can't be dead because I love it. I listen to it. I create it. So I have to believe that there's an appreciation from long form, high quality content somewhere on the internet. If you've made it this far, you're one of those people, right? And so as I started to ask myself the question, how do I create a living library? And how can I bring this concept to life through my business model? The answers started to find me. And the answers are what you will start to witness from my business in the months coming forward, from the recording of this episode. And so a practical example of something that I found that is going to completely change the game for me is I discovered Substack. And at first, I've heard of it before because I didn't even know, but I've been on Substack for years and I was subscribed to the emails there. But I found Substack, which is this incredible, gorgeous app. It's not really social media. Like, you could classify it the same way you could say YouTube is technically social media, but it's basically someone described it. I remember reading a Substack post describing when you go to Instagram to find something, it's the equivalent of going into a very brightly lit mall that is like full of shops, and you just are looking for this thing and you may or may not find it, and you just get in and you get out and you buy it. And the equivalent of Substack is going to a farmer's market on a Sunday afternoon, and the farmer looks you in the eye and hands you the apple that you're going to eat. That's the best example of, number one, like what I'm desiring, how I'm desiring to consume and create content moving forward. And also what I've discovered in this app. And so I started to play around with it because someone told me, hey, you should be on Substack. And at first I was like, no, I don't think so. And then my mentor told me, and then my operations manager, who I really love and cherish, told me. And then I'm like, okay, I'm getting a lot of signs from, the universe right now that keeps pointing me back to Substack. And the more time I spent on it, the more I'm like, wow, this is the place for me to build my living library. Let's go. Like, this is the room full of books where people can just chill and not have constant advertisements and interruptions like blasting them while they attempt to consume content. And they don't mind reading half a book. They don't mind reading a longer post. They don't mind listening to a 20-minute podcast. That's not a problem. They have the space and the quiet. And I found it to be such a beautiful solution to my path towards energy efficiency and life-giving activities in life and business. And so as I started to build this out, I started to realize, oh my gosh, I want to spend more time on Substack and less time on other social media channels. So I started to shift my energy, and I'm using Substack as an example to illustrate how practically, etherically, spiritually, emotionally, I made a decision that I need to move towards energy efficiency, regenerative practices when it comes to my business. And then practically the answers started to find me. Okay. And this is what I want to keep doing, is just showing you that when you make decisions in your heart and your soul and you make a move, the answers do start to find you when you're listening, And so before I tell you a little bit more about what I'm creating the infrastructure and I'm creating, which will be the last part of this episode. To summarize this section up is that I'm applying permaculture principles to my business, and I'm creating a regenerative ecosystem where energy flows naturally, where wisdom is preserved rather than diluted, and where creative expression flourishes without constant tending. Okay. So now let's talk about how this works. What is a complete infrastructure refresh that honors creative energy while maintaining structure? Okay. So here's how I'm redesigning my regenerative business ecosystem. So I am making specific changes to my business model using permaculture design principles. So now I'm going to run you through what that means when it comes to a classic funnel. Okay. So from the moment that my audience finds me, and becomes a lead, all the way to the point where they go through my funnel and they become a high ticket client. So my lead magnets, which would be my free masterclass or my free meditation or my free guide, which you can find all on my website, and my tripwires, which are the small bite, the less than $100 workshop, the guides that I offer, basically the small bite purchases that you can have you to enter my ecosystem as a client. This is the soil that nurtures growth effortlessly. So that's the soil, that's the earth, right? Then my core program, which will be my signature courses, they are the central garden where transformation happens. So people go from my masterclass or my small bite offers, and they get to have a first taste of my work. And based on this free or small ticket offer, they will have a feeling of what it's like to have me as a mentor. You'll just know, you'll have a feeling, and that will propel you into coming into my garden. I says this is where you get to create a transformation, whether it's my School of Story program, my Business by Soul program, or the one that I'm going to be launching this year, which I'm not going to disclose the name of yet. But when you come into one of my programs, whether they're life or self-led, you are already going to be facilitated through the core transformation that specific program promises. So that's really what the garden is. And then my high ticket offers, which is if you're going through this transformation, you're leading yourself, or you're in a group program through this transformation, and you're like, wow, I want to go deeper on this, or I want Celine's eyes on this. I actually want to be doing this with Celine. And you want access to me. You want that proximity with me. That's the high ticket, VIP offer. And those are the fruits that are reserved for those who are ready to do the deep work. And so everyone comes in and they create the soil, and then the garden are the people who are ready to have the transformation, and then the fruits are the ones who are ready to really create the deep work. And then the automations that I have in place, so the ways that I will automate my funnels, that's the irrigation system, which ensures flow without constantly having to effort, right? So automation creates a system where leads are being generated for me, where my content's being posted, where things are being done without needing to push. And so the soil is constantly being nurtured through the systems that I build in my business. Yeah. So that's one way that practically looks like. Another way is I have a new approach to content creation. And so I used to sit down and just make myself batch write for content, right? And I tried, and I am a writer at heart. I love writing. But one of the things that I have learned from about myself is that I don't like being a content cow. As I always tell my team, like I don't like having someone say, Celine, produce content, make me some milk. We need cheese. We need butter. We need, like, don't squeeze me for content, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to perform. I am able to perform at high levels when I'm in my joy, when I'm in my flow, when I'm just in my inspiration. So to do that, I need to be able to create content the way that feels most aligned for me in that moment in time. Sometimes that looks like a video, but other times that looks like a voice note, and other times it looks like writing, and I never know which one's going to be. So I cannot be confined to create 3 90-second reels this week. Like, that's not going to work with me. And what I realized in my newfound way of content, of creating content, and especially now that I'm moving on to Substack, is I'm going to create content the way that content flows for me. Of course, I'm still going to keep a pulse on you listening on the other side. Like, I am still connected to my audience. I'm not just like, you know, those of you, there's probably way less people that will listen to this podcast episode than there are people who would watch my 90-second reel. And at the same time, if, 3,000 people watch my reel and 200 people watch my podcast episode, but you listening to this podcast episode are inspired to take action in your life, and maybe like for those 3,000 people, I'm just another scroll. What matters more to me? I would prefer to serve 200 people and know that out of those 200 people, maybe 30 truly take an action, whether it's watching my masterclass, coming into my ecosystem, or just doing something for yourself, than knowing that 3,000 people scrolled past my reel and kind of like watched it, but I don't know, like 2 people took action. And again, that's draining to me. It's draining to me to spend time, energy creating in a format that I don't love, so that I could optimize for engagement when that engagement isn't even, it's not nutritious. It's just junk food. And so for someone else, so I'd rather be your nutrition, knowing that you've been here with me for an hour and you're really receiving a lot out of this content, and knowing that way less people are going to make it this far, than perform for more likes or comments or engagement, whatever, right? And so yeah, I am approaching content differently and really going with what feels true to my heart. And during these days, it's looking like posting in my Substack community. I'm going to be posting a short podcast, less than 20 minutes long, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes long. It looks like long form content. Also going to be hosted on my Substack. It looks like occasional captions, shorter captions when I'm inspired, that can go on my social media. And really just allowing myself to flow with how I want to create, and going what feels true to my heart. And then, as I shared before, another practical way that I am creating a regenerative business model is redefining success metrics beyond follower counts and engagement rates. So really gauging the quality of my community, the depth of engagement, and creating something that really matters for people. And so, it's really edgy because on social media, I've at this point, I have like, through all my channels, I think I have over 70,000 followers at this point. And so it's been kind of an awkward thing for me to start on Substack with 0 followers, and having my private clients and my private community, my inner circle, come in, and that brings it up to like 30 people, and then it's like 30 people versus 70,000 people. It's been a really interesting edge in terms of, wow, okay, do I really want to do this? And I'm okay with it. I'm really okay with it. I am okay with rebuilding my community if I know that it is of the highest caliber and quality, and the vibration in it is absolutely pristine. I would rather have 100 super like dialed in high quality humans in there than 70,000, and most of them don't, just scroll past my content and don't really look at it, and therefore cannot receive the transformation and the wisdom that I have been for years offering in volume for free. And that doesn't mean I'm going to stop creating free content. Hello, this is free content for you. But at the same time, in the name of regenerative business, I'm not going to be pumping out free content, especially deepest, like in-depth wisdom that, if engaged with consciously, could actually transform your life. I'm not just going to be blasting that out on the internet. It does not belong there. There are some things that are exclusive, not to shut anyone else out, but because you need to pay attention to truly receive what you need from it. There is deep wisdom, and sure, you could say that you can find anything on the internet for free, but there's something to be said around having a space, a curated space, where you can receive that wisdom, and you have mind space, you have bandwidth, and you have the capacity to do so. It's the difference between walking into a small, curated, beautiful, cozy, just high vibe cafe that is focused, like has all the self-development books you could ever dream of and business strategy. Like it's got a curated library and a curated collection, and you can come and drink your coffee and it smells nice. And there's a lot of space. Then going into this and, paying an entry fee for that, paying an entry fee to enter this beautiful curated space, as opposed to like entering this huge library and there's like every book possible and there's no staff that's like there to help you to direct you where it's at, and there's all these people and you can't find seating, but hey, it's free. And all the information that is in the curated living library is also in this really big building with all the stuff, but you're going to need to look for it, and it's mixed with all the other stuff that isn't related to the thing you were looking for. And so that's what I find social media has become. It's just like, it's cacophony. It's really loud and there's a lot going on. And I am a fan. I just enjoy bespoke, curated, deep experiences. And so if that's what I love, that's also what I'm creating. And so it's been really this move towards, how do I redefine success metrics in the spaces I create to be something around how I feel. How do I feel when I'm in here? How nurtured do I feel? Like, do I have space? Do I have bandwidth? Do I have joy? And so it's just a different way of operating. And then, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm addressing the energy leaks in the customer journey. So again, closing the social media leaks with this intentional strategy I've mentioned. I'm in the process of building a seamless customer journey that guides without force. So if at any point in my customer journey I need to push, or it's like a forcing, that's what I'm optimizing for. How do we make this a smooth journey, which operationally looks like, once you sign up for a masterclass, what's the experience after that, and what are the emails that you're receiving after that, and how do they feel, and just really having my hands on every single point of the customer journey, so that I know that as I'm redesigning this, people can feel my love and my passion and my connection to the work that I do, and why I'm inviting you into it every step of the way. So that's the intention. And then automating repetitive tasks, to preserve creative energy. What's the point of me like manually remembering to promote a masterclass every month when I can just automate it? Like, what's the point of me, like there's emails that I can automate. Like, why would I manually send you my nurture emails after a masterclass when I can just automate that and then spend more of my creative energy sending voice notes to people that I really loved connecting with? Something like that, right? So giving myself back energy to focus on what really matters. So this model creates space for creativity while maintaining structure, while maintaining city planning, right? So I'm building a business ecosystem that regenerates rather than depletes, where structure serves creativity rather than suffocates it, and where every element plays a role in creating sustainable abundance. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, and every single thing I'm talking to you about is going to be generating income, and it's also going to be increasing the amount of profit that we get to keep, because there's less wasted tasks, less time wasted on cleaning a pool when no one's swimming, less hours, with this audit, with this downsizing, with this streamlining, with this focusing. There is also going to be an increase in income, because number one, like we just have a tighter, like even the lead generation, they're not going to just be like falling off a bucket because an ecosystem has been created, but also more time is being spent nurturing people that are in our world. So so all of that, to summarize today's episode, I want to invite you into a larger movement that I am creating. And so this movement is around, one of the things I realized is that business is a spiritual journey. I cannot, I don't know about you, but I'm not able, and I'm also not willing to separate business from spirituality. It is one and the same for me. When I build my business, when I grow, it's been a spiritual journey. For me to become a leader has been a spiritual journey. For me to learn how to build a team, an effective team, a dream team, that's been a journey. For me to learn how to, generate millions with my business, that's been a journey. For me to like get back on track every time I fall off the soul alignment path, that's been a journey. Like everything I've done in my business has built my character. It's made me stronger. It's made me smarter. It's made me a better businesswoman. And so what I realized is that through this energetic audit of both myself through the sabbatical and my business post sabbatical is that it's just the importance of creating a strong foundation for sustainable growth. And it's again, it's not about, oops, I'm a new business owner. I've been doing this for a decade. And I'm just really grasping how important this is for business moving forward. And so in a larger cultural context, what I'm saying to you is that I believe we need to move away from depletion models. I believe that there is a way to create a regenerative, sustainable business that supports people, collective, and planet. So, what that means is that there is a way for your business to support you as the founder, owner. There's a way for your business to support the people that it serves, the collective, your team, the clients, your audience, and the planet, which is how do we get less wasteful so we can support our planet as well on a whole. But that's another conversation. The planetary piece is another conversation for another time. But this to me, what it feels like, at least, for me, this is a revolution against both digital like performativity and rigid business structures and doing things the way that other people tell you you have to do in order to succeed. So my invitation for you as you're listening to this podcast is to examine the energy leaks that exist in your own life and business. Because chances are you've got them. You have got them if you made it this far. And know that, and I'm going to invite you as well to continue to listen to this podcast, because as I close out season 3 and I start to dream up season 4, one of the core themes that will be present in season 4 of this podcast is business as a creative, regenerative expression. As I continue to build this on my own, as I continue to have conversations with people who have also successfully built this on their own, I will be sharing with you how I'm doing it. So I am happy to open up the skirts of my kimono and speak in my best capacity to what it's really like to create a business that is a creative, regenerative expression of your soul. Yeah. And now, all of that also being said is I am creating a space where we're going to be having this conversation. And actually, this space at the time of this recording has already been created. And this is going to be, if you are desiring to step into a living library that I'm creating, there will be an opportunity for you to do so, which I will mention in just a moment. And you will also find more information in the notes. Yeah. Because this conversation that we had today, it's not just about my business. It's about pioneering a new paradigm where our systems honor our souls, where our structures support rather than stifle our creativity, and where we build regenerative models that give more than they take. That's what this is really about. And so know that for those of you who are desiring to get a taste of what this is and to really get behind the scenes of how I'm doing this, how I'm building this, and what I'm learning along the way, I would love to invite you to join my Substack community. And so all of the details are going to be in the show notes, but just know that at the time of this recording, there is a very special limited time offer. We are building a Substack membership model right now. And so you're going to be able to come in and join my community. And again, all the details are going to be in the show notes, but I'm going to be running every month. I'm going to be running a live masterclass where you can come in and listen to my journey and what I've been finding, everything practically speaking, as I continue to build this business. You're going to be able to come in and listen so that you can get inspired, and you can also come in and ask your questions around what you want to know about your business and how to build it. So we're going to have an open conversations about this in my Substack community. You're also going to be getting access to multiple times a week. I'm going to be sharing voice notes, like little mini trainings, as well as insights and wisdom on what it is that I'm learning along the way when it comes to living from soul, which is the name of my Substack. So living from soul is a living library where I am sharing wisdom, where you can come in, ask questions, get your questions answered, as well as just deep dive into the journey of what it's like to be living your life in alignment to soul and how that looks like not just spiritually and emotionally, but also practically in your life and your business. And so for those of you who are interested, there is a very special limited offer for you to become a founding member. Now, what does this mean? We have a very limited space for this. It's first come, first served. Once it's filled, it is filled until spots open up again. But as a founding member, you are going to get additional, in addition to everything that comes in a regular membership, you're also going to be getting some additional perks that include priority access to ask me questions. It's going to include access to courses that you don't get access to as a regular member. So for you to have more details, just go and check out the link in the why do I keep the show notes? I keep being like, what is it? Like a summary? What, a sales page? No, that's not what it is. But because I'd love, for those of you who are listening and made it this far and you're really resonating with this on a soul level, I love to invite you to come and be part of my community. Because if this kind of content that you find on my podcast, if this moves you, then you're in for a ride. And come into the deep dive, do a deep dive with me, and you will find that every week with this inspiration, every week with these new insights and these new trainings, you will continuously find inspiration and practical solutions to come back into your own journey. Yeah. So this is really about, today's episode is about just reclaiming your authentic expression. And today I'm speaking about it through the lens of business. How do we do this, right? And so this is the conversation that I'm going to continue to have with you throughout season 4 and in my content, and specifically in my Substack. So for those of you who are interested in this, just what I'm going to ask you to do is to DM me on @Selena DM me the word revolution for early access to this special. Yeah, because at the time that this is going to launch, we are just going to be opening doors for this, and you're going to want to get in for this limited time offer. And so, last but not least, as we close today's episode up, just one I want to thank you is just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening for my journey. You know, it's been a big one, especially this season. I have, as openly as I could within my own boundaries, I have very openly spoken to and recorded my journey when it comes to finding my way, you know, back into soul alignment again and again and again, because it's not really a one-time thing. It's not like, oh, I'm aligned, I'm here forever. It's a practice. It's a practice of, oops, I just fell out of alignment. Let me get back in. Oops, I just fell. And it's about just continuing to walk the path of highest soul alignment. And what I mean by that is what matters the most for you. It's a life of meaning. It's a life of purpose. It's a life of this matters. And it feels completely different than when you're operating from a place of being stressed out, disconnected, disillusioned, jaded, exhausted, burned out. None of that is a recipe for, like, that is not an energetic match for fulfillment. And so for us to feel aligned and fulfilled and joyful, we need to act that way. And it does, for those of us who have not learned to do that from day one, which is most of the population at the time of this recording, we're going to need to unlearn how we did it. And then we're going to need to relearn and re-educate ourselves to do it better next time around. And I can tell you, after over a decade of just deep personal work on myself, things change for the better. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for being with me through this season. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so grateful for those of you who just really take the time to listen to these episodes and message me. You know, I just get so lit up every time you listen and send me a message and tell me how this impacted you. It really warms my heart. And by the way, you can still feel free to do that on social media. I do have a team member who checks everything and gets me the response. And I always love to pop in and say thank you personally. So thank you so much. Anytime you send me something, just know it does get seen and it does get deeply appreciated. And of course, if you are receiving value from this podcast, I would also greatly appreciate if you could pop into Apple iTunes and leave us a review. That is just, we read every single one of them, and it supports us so much in getting this message out there. So thank you for showing up today. Thank you for listening. I really invite you to take this episode and use it as a jumping point for your own deep reflection. Where am I leaking energy in my personal life and my business? And most importantly, what can I do about it? What needs to change? What needs to shift in order for me to get back into my alignment? All right. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next season. Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning into today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celine DaCosta or visiting my website at CelineDaCosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.